Hey everyone, welcome back to Yusuf Reacts, where we dive into your favorite movies and TV shows from the past. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane to 2005, the year when superhero movies were starting to gain momentum. And we were introduced to Marvel's first family on the big screen, the Fantastic Four. Released in July 2005, Fantastic Four brought together a team of superheroes that had been beloved in comic books for decades. Directed by Tim Story, the movie starred Ian Gruffhead as Reed Richards, Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, and Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm. Let's break down what made this movie a hit back then and how it holds up today. So, let's start with the plot. The movie follows the origin story of the Fantastic Four. After a space mission goes wrong, our heroes are exposed to cosmic radiation, giving them unique powers. Reed becomes the stretchy Mr. Fantastic, Sue gains invisibility and force fields, Johnny can turn into the Human Torch, and Ben transforms into the super strong Thing. One of the highlights of the film was how it handled these transformations and the character development that followed. Each character had their own arc, dealing with their new abilities in different ways. Fans of the comic book had mixed reactions. On one hand, the movie stayed relatively true to the source material in terms of character traits and dynamics. On the other hand, some felt that the tone was a bit too light-hearted and didn't capture the depth of the comics. However, the chemistry among the cast was undeniably one of the movie's strong points. Chris Evans, in particular, brought a lot of charisma and humor to Johnny Storm, a role quite different from his later portrayal of Captain America. And we can't forget the villain, Dr. Doom, played by Julian McMahon. His portrayal was divisive, with some appreciating the menacing presence, while others felt the character lacked depth compared to his comic book counterpart. Dr. Doom's transformation and ultimate plan to defeat the Fantastic Four provided the central conflict, culminating in a showdown that, while exciting, left some fans wanting more from such an iconic villain. Visually, the movie was a mixed bag. The special effects were decent for the time, but some elements, like Reed's stretching powers, didn't age as well. On the flip side, the practical effects for the Thing were widely praised. The Thing suit, worn by Michael Chiklis, added a tangible, grounded feel to the character, which CGI might not have achieved at the time. Fantastic Four was a commercial success, grossing over $330 million worldwide. Critics were mixed, though, with some praising its fun and adventurous spirit, while others criticized its script and pacing. It holds a 27% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, indicating a split between audience enjoyment and critical reception. So, how does Fantastic Four 2005 hold up today? It's a bit of a mixed bag. For many, it's a nostalgic trip back to the early days of superhero cinema. While it might not compare to the sophisticated storytelling and special effects we see in today's superhero movies, it has its own charm and definitely paved the way for future Marvel films. The movie's legacy is also notable for introducing Chris Evans to the Marvel Universe, a journey that would eventually lead him to become one of the most beloved characters, Captain America. A group of astronauts gain superpowers after a cosmic radiation exposure, and must use them to oppose the plans of their enemy, Dr. Victor Von Doom. Four astronauts have their lives changed forever when they end up being hit by a cloud of cosmic radiation. Reed Richards now has the ability to stretch his body like elastic. Sue Storm Alba is now the Invisible Woman. Johnny Storm becomes the Human Touch and Ben Grimm becomes the Thing, a man made out of rock. But there is one problem. The journey's sponsor, Victor Von Doom, has also been affected and with full power is a dangerous force which needs to be stopped before it's too late. Yearning to study the massive clouds of cosmic energy in the vast space, the brilliant physicist, Dr. Reed Richards, enlists the help of his millionaire classmate, Dr. Victor Von Doom. Instead, the unfathomable energy source affects Reed, turning him into the elastic Mr. Fantastic. Victor's assistant, Sue Storm, becomes the Invisible Girl. Her hot-blooded younger brother, Johnny, is now the flaming Human Torch. And lastly, pilot Ben Grimm transforms into the temperamental mass of rocks and muscles known as the Thing. But, from the black void of space, humankind's arch-enemy arrives. Can the Fantastic Four, the unstoppable band of incredible superheroes, thwart the destructive plans of the mysterious Dr. Doom? When an experimental space voyage goes awry, 4 people are changed by cosmic rays. Reed Richards, inventor and leader of the group, gains the ability to stretch his body and takes the name Mr. Fantastic. His girlfriend, Sue Storm, gains the ability to turn invisible and create force fields, calling herself the Invisible Woman. Her younger brother Johnny Storm gains the ability to control fire, including covering his own body with flame, becoming the Human Torch. Pilot Ben Grimm is turned into a super-strong rock creature, calling himself Thing. Together, they use their unique powers to explore the strange aspects of the world and to foil the evil plans of Dr. Doom. Reed Richards is a very talented scientist seeking the funding for a space experiment. Along with his friend and partner Ben Grimm, he goes to businessman Victor Von Doom and manages to get his support. So, Reed and Ben, along with Von Doom, his partner Sue Storm and her brother Johnny, find themselves aboard Von Doom's private space station. However, an accident will flood the station with cosmic rays and Reed, Ben, Sue and Johnny will gain amazing powers, thus becoming the Fantastic Four. But the 4 of them aren't the only ones affected by the cosmic rays. Dr. Reed Richards Ian Grufford, a genius but timid and bankrupt physicist, is convinced that evolution was triggered millions of years ago on Earth by clouds of cosmic energy in space and has calculated that one of these clouds is soon going to pass near Earth. Together with his friend, the gruff yet gentle astronaut Ben Grimm Michael Chiklis, Reed convinces Dr. Victor Von Doom Julian McMahon, once his classmate at MIT and now CEO of Von Doom Industries, to allow him access to his privately owned space station to test the effects of exposure to the cloud on biological samples. Doom agrees, in exchange for control over the experiment and a majority of the profits from whatever benefits it brings. He brings aboard his beautiful chief genetics researcher and Reed's ex-girlfriend from MIT Susan Storm Jessica Alba, and her hot-headed brother Johnny Storm Chris Evans, a private astronaut who was Ben's subordinate at NASA, but is his superior on the mission. The quintet travels to space to observe the cosmic energy clouds. But Reed has miscalculated, and the clouds materialize well ahead of schedule. Reed, Susan and Johnny leave the shielded station to rescue Ben, who has gone on a spacewalk to place the samples, and Victor closes the shield behind them. Ben receives full exposure out in space, while the others receive a more limited dose within the station. They return home, but soon begin to develop strange powers. Reed is able to stretch like rubber. Susan can become invisible and create force fields, especially when angered. Johnny can engulf himself in fire at temperatures in excess of 4,000 K. Erroneously described as supernova-like in the film, and is able to fly. And Ben is transformed into a large, rock-like creature with superhuman strength and durability. Victor, meanwhile, faces a backlash from his stockholders due to the publicity from the failed mission, and has a scar on his face from an exploding control console he was near during the clouds pass. Ben returns home to see Debbie, Lori Holden, his fiancée, but she cannot handle his new appearance and flees. He goes to brood on Brooklyn Bridge and accidentally causes a traffic pileup while stopping a man from committing suicide. The 4 use their various powers to contain the damage and prevent anyone from being hurt. While the public cheers them for their efforts, Ben sees his fiancée leave her engagement ring on the ground and run. Reed hands a heartbroken Ben the ring and vows to find a way to turn him back to normal. The media dubs them the Fantastic Four for their efforts. Victor watches the news story and is told that his company is lost now, the group's fame overriding the company's fate. With the media, the four move into Reed's lab in the Baxter building to study their abilities and find a way to return Ben to normal. Victor offers his support in their efforts, but blames Reed for the mission's failure, the lights flickering as he grows enraged. Victor goes to a Von Doom building and steals a heat-seeking missile and a super cooling unit. Reed tells the group he will construct a machine to recreate the storm and reverse its effect on their bodies, but warns it could possibly accelerate them instead. Meanwhile, Victor continues to mutate, his arm turning into an organic metal and allowing him to produce bolts of electricity. And he begins plotting to use his new powers to take his revenge. Victor drives a wedge between Ben and Reed by telling Ben that Reed has no desire to change himself back, as the group's research has allowed him to rekindle his relationship with Susan. Reed and Ben argue, Ben walking out in a rage. This motivates Reed to attempt the machine on himself, but he cannot generate the power needed to push the storm to critical mass. Doom hears Reed tell Susan this through security cameras and has been brought to the lab. Ben is placed in the machine and Doom uses his abilities to produce the electricity needed to power it, turning Ben back to normal and accelerating Doom's condition, causing much of his body to turn to metal. Victor knocks the human Ben unconscious and kidnaps Reed. Victor, now calling himself Dr. Doom, dons a metal mask to hide his physical disfigure and incapacitates and tortures Reed using the super cooling unit. Doom fires the heat-seeking missile at the Baxter building to kill Johnny, and Johnny flies through the city to evade it, lighting a garbage barge on fire to trick it. Susan rushes to confront Doom as Ben begins to regret his decision to turn normal. Susan frees Reed and battles Doom, but is outmatched. Ben arrives to save her, transformed into the Thing again by reusing the machine, speaking his signature line, "It's clobbering time." The battle spills into the streets, and the four assemble to battle Doom. Johnny and Susan combine their powers to wrap Doom in an inferno of intense heat, and Ben and Reed douse him with cold water, inducing thermal shock and freezing Doom in place. As an epilogue, Ben informs Reed that he has accepted his condition with the help of Alicia Masters, a blind artist for whom he has developed feelings, and the team decide to embrace their roles as superheroes and unite officially as the Fantastic Four. Reed proposes marriage to Susan, who accepts, and they share a kiss. Meanwhile, Doom's statuesque remains are being transported back to his homeland of Latveria. When the Doc Master's electronic manifest briefly experiences electronic interference, suggesting Doom is still alive. Fantastic Four is one of the last superhero films that I can recall that wasn't insufferably bleak or incredibly serious to a point where any shred of humor was seen as obtuse to the film's narrative. Yes, Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is an indisputable breakthrough in superhero films, but it also made the seriousness of superhero films standard, something that would follow into the late 2000s and early 2010s as Marvel built up the Avengers. Fantastic Four reminds of the quirkiness superhero films were once predicated upon, and while it may get a bit too corny at times, and its focus can never really settle, it's also a very commercial film that satisfies on some level of entertainment when it gives every card in its deck a fair time to shine. We open by looking at a physicist named Dr. Reed Richards Ian Grufford, who is convinced evolution was triggered millions of years ago by stray elements of cosmic energy in space, some of which will pass near Earth very soon. His pal, astronaut Ben Grimm Michael Chiklis, works by his side on this potentially revolutionary discovery by helping him convince their old classmate Dr. Victor Von Doom Julian McMahon, the CEO of Von Doom Industries, to allow both of them access to his private space station to further experiment with the effects of these cosmic energy particles. While Doom agrees, he winds up walking away with most of the profits that this experiment will bring, affirming Reed's desperation to make his project work. Still, he persists on and brings his close friends Susan Storm, Jessica Alba, and her brother Johnny Chris Evans along for the ride. However, when a trip to outer space goes awry, exposure with the cosmic energy results in the four receiving deformities and enhanced human abilities that have never before been seen. Reed possesses the ability to stretch every limb of his body. Susan has the ability to disappear and reappear at her leisure. Johnny can have his body engulfed in flames simply by reciting the phrase "flame on." And Ben turns into a hideous, orange rock monster. Following the Four's mutations, writers Michael France and Mark Frost focus a great deal of their time on the agony that these mutations bring, particularly the Thing, who experiences his wife leaving him shortly after revealing his deformity. While this agony is a solid angle, one I'd argue necessary in most superhero films, too much of the time is spent profiling the Thing and not enough on the remaining characters of the film. Reed and Ben, who are ultimately the film's main focus, wind up monopolizing too much of the picture. And any time we see Johnny is when he's right in the middle of making a smug comment or being his typical, womanizing self. The action in Fantastic Four has a colorful commercial look to it, brilliantly bold and very vibrant in a way that makes many of the scenes pop with life. It manages to achieve a comic book aesthetic without resorting to picture-in-picture editing. One particularly involving scene takes place on a suspension bridge, where the Thing is seen pummeling everything in his sight, and the remaining three members of the team must resort to either relaxing him or protecting drivers and innocent bystanders. The goofiness in Fantastic Four, however, in an age of dark superhero films that come with slick aesthetics and brooding characters, is a delightful change of pace. Yes, there is a point when one wishes director Tim Story, France, and Frost would command a tighter grip on the seriousness of the writing. But the pulpy fun of Fantastic Four, in addition to the effects and the neatly choreographed action, keep it a moving, satisfying spectacle that is more than just colors flying around on screen, trying to find their place. Thanks for joining me on this nostalgic look back at Fantastic Four 2005. What are your thoughts on the movie? Did you love it back then, or did it fall short of your expectations? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more movie reviews and retrospectives. Until next time, this is Lois, signing off.